Hi guys, I'm Carly. Welcome to Plugin of the Week. For those of you who are not so familiar with us, Point Blank is an electronic music school. We've got courses here in London, LA, Ibiza and online. Just head to our website, pointblankmusicschool.com, where you can find out more about the courses that we offer, which include DJing, music production, sound engineering and radio. I'm joined by JC, our creative director here at Point Blank. He's responsible for a lot of our course info, and he's going to be chatting through today the Outer Space plugin from AudioThing, which is a vintage tape echo emulator. Don't forget we're streaming live, so we love your questions. So if you have any, please post them in the comment section and we will get to them a little later on. Hi, JC.
Hello, Carly.
Hello.
How are you? How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, good. We're in Studio 5.
Studio 5.
So
Loads of cool synths.
Yeah, a lot of cool things.
It's our practice studio, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a studio practice for students. There's a live room attached to it, so students can come in here. And it's kind of a synth little pad.
It's a cool synth pad.
Korg MS-20, Juno, no. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. Great room. So, yeah, so today we're looking at this plugin.
Woohoo!
I think it was released maybe 2-3 weeks ago now by a company called AudioThing. The plugin is called Outer Space. And yeah, that's basically an emulation of the classic Roland RE201.
Do you have one of those?
I've got few. I'm a big fan of tape echoes. Yeah, it's very much part of the
So how does
what
this
I
compare
do.
to those then?
The thing with tape echoes, they're all going to be always different depending on the tape, how well they've been maintained. I've got one that sounds super clean, still well maintained. I've got one that I keep a bit dirty because I have that kind of saturation, so I don't change the tape as often. I don't always clean the heads. You know, think of it as a tape machine.
Yeah.
And you can achieve the echo, kind of, it's a warm echo, and it's a tape echo. So you could achieve the same with a tape machine. And we've talked about it, I think, on some plugin of the week, the tape. Those of you guys who have watched the Prince Fatty video, Mike is doing the whole dub delay with the Revox, a quarter-inch machine. It's the same idea. It's a delay made with a tape, and it's based on the space between the heads. Okay. That gives you a longer delay, and the slower you go with the tape. So, shall we have a quick listen? What it does? So, it's we've used this demo track. It's done by our students. That was the cover of Clint Eastwood.
A very relevant track for this plugin.
I think it works really well for that. So let's have a listen. And here I've put it on the guitar. That's without. You hear the echo behind it. And obviously the trademark effects of a tape echo is as soon as you start pushing the feedbacks, you've got that kind of self-oscillation going on. For those of you who like that type of sound, it works really well. So, what's the point of a tape echo versus a delay? You know, let's start with that, for example. Some digital delay are going to give you, if they don't really have a vibe in their sound and the delay sound exactly the same as the original, all you end up having is something repeating the original sound. Sometimes it works, that's what you want. But often what you want with your delay is, first of all, not to sound similar in terms of frequency, maybe duller. Because in real life, you know, if you have an echo, you go into a tunnel or open canyon space, you shout, you've got this echo going, it's a natural thing. They are duller. They come from further away, all that kind of stuff, you know, and it's part of giving you that sense of space.
Right, okay.
So I really like that. One of the great things about the tape echo as well is the fact that it's a tape, so it doesn't always run at the exact same speed. So the delay is moving a little bit. So you're getting that movement. I think it adds a lot of grooves. So let's have a look at how it works.
Cool.
So let's keep it on the guitar for now, and we can try it on other stuff. Couple of things to note about how you use it in terms of, should you use it stereo, as a bus, blah, blah. The original tape echo had different input. It's not quite the same function as the real RE201 because you had different inputs. Here, if you use the wet-only that means you send it via a bus. So if I look at my guitar here, I'm sending it into a bus. It comes back on bus here, auxiliary 1, bus 1. And you will see straight away the original RE was mono. And there's something for me about mono effect in a mix, especially when a mix is super busy. The fact that you can have a delay where you literally mono it with the original signal, like here, the guitar. So let's experiment with that a little bit. This is a stereo guitar actually here, but I'm going to turn it mono for the purpose of that, what I'm doing. So now I could pan it. I could pan my echo the same way, and that's going to create so much space in my mix. I've got the guitar here, the echo with it, and I don't have all that space shimmering everywhere else. For me, that's one way to achieve, and that's very 60s, that kind of sound where you're getting super wide mixes without the delay cluttering another part on the other side of the stereo picture. I really like that. See, plenty of space, the delay does its thing with the guitar, totally part of the same sound. So the original RE was mono. Okay. Now, this one you can use as a stereo. You see here the function, stereo off or on. And therefore, you would have to make the bus stereo if you want to use it stereo. It doesn't mean that you'd get some ping pong, it just means that you've got a more of a stereo kind of picture spread, if you like. So that's the one thing to be aware of. But I'm good, like I said, I like to use it mono. Now, I like to use it also wet, because that way, wet only, so I can have the direct sound here. And then I can dose how much I want to bring into it and mix both of them. The original one, you had to do it, plug it in a different way. Otherwise, if you have it as normal, then you've got your input here, you've got the output volume for the general device, and then you've got your echo volume and your reverb. So you're going to push that, and that will be how you get the dry sound, and that how much you get of the delay on top of the dry sound. So if you use it as an insert, you can do that. But as a bus, I just use it that way as a wet only. So how do you get the time? So every device are different. There was, before the RE21, which was the first one that really became super popular, they were cheap, they were super well built. That's probably why now there are still many of them out there. My one is still in fairly decent condition. I've got a RE201 and a 501, which is much more built like a tank, like a metal one. But still, this one is still in great condition. Before that, they had the RE100 and 200, but they were kind of the first model. The RE21 really became the first one, and it's probably the one that people are the most into. That is the classic Roland tape echo. And you have other tape echo manufacturers, Echoplex, blah, blah. But that is, I think, and they were cheap at the time. So, you could afford that. And
probably not so cheap now.
Second hand, the good ones in good state are going around the ground. About. Whereas
this plug-in is a lot more affordable.
This one is like $50, I think, or 50 euros. So that's what I was interested in. How close does it sound to the real thing? Hard to tell because there are so many of them. Okay? How close does it sound to other plugin? Well, it sounds very good. It totally stands on par with other manufacturers who have emulated tape delay. For me, tape delay is the harder thing to emulate, I think, just because of the nature of the randomness of it. If you want that tape delay, you're into that analog sound, consider using a real thing. But as a delay in itself is far more interesting for me than a slightly more normal delay in your
It has a bit more character, I guess.
It's got a lot more character, isn't it? So time-wise, how does it work? Okay, you've got those mode selector, which are 12 of them, like the original. And you're going to see, the original one, you didn't have the time. So you really, and that's one thing I love about it, is you had to check your time, echo time, by feel. How does it feel? Because there was no numbers. So it was literally, and let's experiment with that. Let's play with that a little bit. So here, the repeat rate is effectively your time delay. Classic, you hear the tape moving, going faster, and they've emulated that very well. That's a much shorter. And that goes slower, therefore a longer delay time. The original, I think, the delay time maximum was about 500 milliseconds. So I think they've kept that. What if you want shorter one? This is where the heads thing comes around. So mode 1, you've got only first head. You see, only the shortest is 60 milliseconds and the longest 150. You see? That's your typical kind of slap back that we call a short echo that gives you a slap back, and then you make it longer. But you know what? Yeah, no, on that mode I don't have any reverb, so I'll explain that. So slower that way. Then you go into different modes. Head number 2 is a bit further away, give you a bit more delay time. Again. Just automating that is a great way to create texture in electronic music, in my opinion. You know. And here you see, I'm just going with the feel of the timing. It's not perfectly on time, but
that's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it. I think for me, a lot of electronic music now is so on time, so everything like so perfect.
It just becomes a bit soulless.
You're losing a bit of that kind of emotion, isn't it? And music is based on emotion. You want something that a little bit talks to you on that level. And then head number 3 is this one, and again go up to 500 milliseconds. Then all the other models, you see here, you can get combination of 2 heads. Therefore, you're getting different repeat and starting creating patterns. Okay. So really cool. From here, mode 5 to 12, you're getting all those combination of heads, as you see. But on top of it, you're getting the difference between the 201 and the model before was that the 201 had a spring reverb. And we've talked a little bit in spring reverb and stuff like that. Again, if you refer to the Prince Fatty video, there's a handmade spring reverb. It's that kind of twang that you get on guitar amp, for example, but are also really sought after by some producers. So let's have a listen to the spring reverb on its own, actually. It's quite cool. It has that kind of, again, really vintage. So that's really good. So that's kind of how it works in terms of the timing. Now, the difference that you don't have in the original one, first of all, you can see the time. So that's pretty cool. Because, helpful. Well, yeah, it's helpful. What I would advise, for example, is go online. Back in the days, we used to have delay charts, and you have all your BPMs, and it gives you all the milliseconds value for a quarter note, a 16 note.
Okay.
So you would check your delay time, and that's what you would do with your delay, because you didn't have any sync button to your DAW.
Did you have it like posted on the wall?
Well, usually you would have it next to you on the desk. You know, every engineer had them, but you can find them online. So check the time. And then what I used to always do would be make it a few milliseconds behind or after or earlier than the exact value.
Okay.
Again, it
just
gives
to add
you
that natural
kind of filter to it, yeah. So you can start doing that. That's kind of an eighth kind of value. Then the intensity is the feedback. That's where you're getting your feedback, like any delays. More repetition. Only one.
Yeah.
Until you start oscillating it and getting it famous. Totally works. I mean, I love the sound of it. You know, I think they've done a really good job. Then you've got a simple EQ. On the original model, the EQ would affect the reverb as well. But if you go on the more here, you can say EQ reverb. Therefore, you can suddenly now, the EQ affects the reverb as well as the echo.
Oh, okay.
So just something to be aware of. What else on this? Okay. To carry on with, they've done, the Gaia AudioThing have done a different tape response, because the tape is so important. Yeah. So the first one, the RT, is the original tape that was sold with it and you could buy them. It has a sound. Then you've got a new tape, because nowadays you can't find those tapes anymore, but you can find them online, but they're not the original one made by Roland. Usually they're like cassette tape, but longer, and you put them in there. Different sound. Let's have a listen. See how it... A bit cleaner, a bit more top end maybe. And then the old tape. A bit more saturation, a bit more distorted. So all of those are going to also have an impact on how your delay sound and behaves.
Okay.
On top of it, you've got a wah and flutter, which is typical of a tape. That's how it's starting to, the level moves a little bit, the wah, the speed moves a little bit. So the more you put up that, the more you're getting a little bit of that groove.
Why is it called the Wow Flutter, by
I
the
don't
way?
know.
I think it's a great name, the Wow.
Yeah,
I just wonder if it stands for anything.
I'm not quite.
Maybe.
I never thought about it. Good question. It's
Yeah.
the fact that it's
Food for
not
thought.
straight, something like. But do you hear it on the delay now?
Yeah.
The pitch is going up and down.
I like that.
I really like that.
I really like that.
It's really, really cool. So that obviously wasn't in the original because that was the nature of the tape.
Yeah.
But like many emulation of tapes now, they've added that and you can have that going for you. On top of it now, you've got the decay for the reverb, a long or short. The original one didn't have that, but it's cool to have. On top of it, you've got noise as well. Some of them were very noisy, sometimes with a delay. So you can add that. And you can have an envelope, which means the noise isn't there when nothing plays, but as soon as a signal goes in, the noise comes up.
Okay.
So have a listen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
I like that. That's cool.
So I've gone pretty, lots of flouter and wow, a lot of noise, pretty lo-fi, pretty kind of like, pretty tripping really. Let's say, let's face it.
Paul says, how many presets does it have?
Lots of presets. Have a look here. You've got the factory presets here, the dub, the lo-fi, the blah, 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 and then Supri Media, I think. Lots of presets as well. But to be honest, the whole point of a tape echo was always that you just play with it and have a feel with it. For me, that's the idea. It's an opportunity to go away from presets. It's so simple to use. Just play and create your own thing.
Jason's asking, how well does this handle a parallel setup with a dry signal?
That's what I'm doing here, literally. We've got the dry signal here, we've got the aux coming back here. So you see, it's totally designed for that. You put it on wet only, and here off you go. Okay, one thing that the original obviously didn't have, not only you couldn't see the time, but you didn't have a sync button. Now, they've added a sync button, which is a cool thing, because some people may want something totally straight. There, suddenly, you've got your usual 116, 116D, triplet, dotted.
EP34.
Is the EP34, is it the Electrolux? The Ecoplex, maybe? I'm not sure. I mean, you'll have to let me know what is the EP34. Is it maybe it's probably an Ecoplex, I think, because they all start with EP.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Ecoplex could give you longer times because this one was always limited at 500 milliseconds with the feedback.
Okay.
You can get them up to 1.8 seconds, I think, but then you don't have it's called the sound on sound and head on head. I can't remember the exact terminology, so don't quote me on that. But you don't have the feedback for that longer delay type. So Ecoplex are super thought after as well. Some of them are super well built with valve. They can be really, really expensive. That was probably a more affordable model, but that's why it may be more common. But I know friends who have a huge collection of tape echo. Prince Fatty, Mike, for example, has loads, used to have loads and had a couple of really lovely Ecoplex, but they can be very, very pricey. And harder to find, I think.
Okay.
I think.
Paul says, how CPU friendly is this?
Super friendly, I think. It seems to me really, really friendly. I haven't encountered any I love this. The sound of it, it's really working.
Cool.
Any more questions?
That is it.
So another thing to be aware of in the more option here, you've got HQ mode. So HQ mode is better, just higher quality, takes a bit more CPU, but I think works better with the decay, sounds better when the decay. You also have oversampling, so you could, I think oversampling is when you start automating the decay, you maybe get some, if you're noticing aliasing, which is part of digital rendering, you can introduce oversample. I've never really felt the need so far from what I've heard.
Yeah.
They even have a limiter, because what can happen is, as you've seen here, let's do this typical typical thing. Let's have a bit of fun. So obviously you see you're distorting heavily here. And I'm sure some of you guys have heard those effects everywhere on Portishead records, Radiohead record, but typically Portishead, the first Portishead and Portishead Live, they have like a rack of tape echo. Everything goes through tape echo. It's very much part of their sound. And some Radiohead as well. There's a couple of songs on OK Computer 1 finishes with this tape echo going and slowing down massively. I mean, that is a classic effect that you hear on classic records.
One more question. Glad Happy. What a good name. Could you try it on vocals?
Absolutely, I love it on vocal. Let's have it on vocal here now. I'm gonna keep this one set up as I had it. Now I'm gonna, let's not go with sync. Keeping it on the guitar, and now I'm going to have another one on the vocal. It works a treat on vocal. I mean, I'm using it a lot on vocal constantly, pretty much. It's part of my FX chain. Again, it's a mono thing, so it's there, it's discrete in the background. It brings a bit of harmonics, a lot of charm to it. Absolutely love it. So I'm going to go into bus 2. I've set up a new bus. I'm going to make it wet only as well. And let's try it on vocal. Let's put maybe head number 3, see for a longer time potentially. No sync. Let's go for it.
I ain't happy. I'm feeling glad I got sunshine. In a bag, I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on. I ain't happy. I'm feeling glad I got sunshine. In a bag, I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on.
You could do that at the end.
Yeah.
Then you bring it down in your mix.
Here's nothing cause I'm counting no age. Now I couldn't be there.
Not for long, the future.
Paul has another question. How does it compare to Echo Boys, since it's considered a must-have plugin?
Echo Boys. I love Echo Boys, obviously, like most mix engineer. It's on every single one of my mix. Echo Boys can do wider things.
Okay.
So it doesn't only simulate some type of echo, but Echo Boys doesn't tell you which tape echo it simulates. It simulates a tape echo or a type of tape delay. It could be a tape machine, it could be anything. Echo Boys that more, obviously. That is obviously a fifth of the price. And I think so, and it only does that.
Yeah.
But I've got to say, for the price, it's super value. I mean, it sounds really, really, really nice. You're still getting that crunchiness, that vibe, and the automation works well. I mean, if you try it, obviously there's a demo, I'm sure, and for the price you can't really go wrong. I mean, you can use it on so many stuff, even on drums. I mean, after I was trying it on drums and then cut the drums and create grooves and start EQing it, and you're getting a lot of really, really interesting texture, in my opinion. You can do. Let's try it quickly on drums, and then I think that would give us a good overview of what you can do. Try that. I'm gonna, for example, let's do that.
That is cool.
And straight away you're getting a nice
like
groove.
it on the drum.
You know what I mean? Look at that.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked because I've EQ'd it in that way. So on top of it, Imagine putting a filter behind it and stuff like that. You know, be creative. I think what I love about that is, I don't know why, it's the type of echo I've always find inspiring to play with.
Yeah.
And to be creative with.
Oh, Glad Happy's got another question. Can it do stereo ping pong stuff?
I don't think it can, because it's... Let's see if we can do stereo. Now, if we were to use several ahead. You know what, we're monitoring in mono here, so I'm not even sure if it does. Can it does ping pong? Do you hear in your headphones? I don't think it does, because again the tape echo wasn't designed for that purpose.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that was a wonderful overview. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
€49. Head to the AudioThing website. If
I
you
mean,
want to try
yeah,
that.
and I mean, our students, we do that with our students. We've got also in the college the RE20, which is a pedal by Bose, which is effectively Rodent, simulating that. So we know that we've got a whole day with our students where we get them to play with them, do dub version on the desk. You know, it's very much part of this whole dub culture.
Happy fun times.
Happy fun times.
And if you would like to learn more about music production, mixing, or sound engineering, head to our website, pointblankmusicschool.com, where you can find out more about our courses. And we'll see you again next week with another plugin of the week. Bye.